Unfortunately, the biggest trend that we've seen is gender-based hatred and abuse and intimidation online, where more and more hatred, the majority of online hatred is targeted at women, including journalists, politicians, but also CEOs and public-facing business women and other female leaders. And I actually had one of these campaigns directed at myself after I wrote an article for The Guardian, and the next day, the far-right extremist, maybe you've heard of him or maybe you know him, Tommy Robinson, stormed my office with a cameraman live streaming that confrontation to his 200,000 followers on Twitter back then. And what followed was a huge hate campaign with death threats, rape threats. I actually had to move house, I had to move office. It was awful, and it showed how much intimidation they can cause and how much terror. Now, often, these campaigns are coordinated behind the scenes on small fringe platforms created by extremists for extremists, and only then they are carried onto the big mainstream platforms. Sometimes it's also encrypted messaging apps or smaller platforms that are hijacked. But only then do they get onto the big platforms. To wrap up, what does this mean for businesses? Why does this matter? 4 reasons. One of them is very obvious: workplace harassment, abuse that they can inspire. The other one is online campaigns. As I said, we've seen really an uptick in online abuse that might also target, for example, public-facing women in your business or even CEOs and other female leaders. But we've also seen in recent years that extremists, including misogynists, have become increasingly good at hijacking certain brands and also exploiting products and services. So this is something we want to prevent, of course. To end on a positive note, I know this was pretty dark, but to end on a positive note, I do see a lot of potential for the private sector. And it's quite counterintuitive, but actually most people have the highest level of trust in their own employers. I know this is weird. I didn't think that people would actually trust their own employers that much, but they trust them more than they trust the government, media, even NGOs. So people have the highest level of trust in private sector businesses. And I think there's a huge potential for businesses to help reverse some of these trends and to help mend some of these divisions on a gender basis, on a political level, on all of these levels that we just saw.